Hello and welcome back to the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. Obviously, I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin. Nice t-shirt, by the way.
Changed. If you're watching all these, welcome to the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. We are in the midst of our favorite day. Dad, we are looking at the offseason outlook of each division. We're now in the AL Central. That's why the t-shirt change. Let's see if I can keep this up and keep switching behind the scenes before the next podcast starts. Dad, we're not going to start with the Tigers. We're going to start with the Twins. Again, if you are just joining us because you are a fan of the Central or live in the American League and live in the Midwest and follow these Central teams.
They knew what you meant.
Yeah. We're getting loopy already. I'm not going to start with the Tigers. I'm going to start with the Twins, and what this podcast or what this episode's all about is we look at the losses that these teams are experiencing, as well as the needs. Those needs could be to keep losing people, to trade people away, or to plug holes, make big splashes, make trades, whatever it might be. I have my lovely co-host here with me. He might agree. If you watch the AL East one, we did not actually agree on a team, the Toronto Blue Jays. So let's kind of see where we head in the Central. I'm going to start with probably the team that has the most question marks going into 2025. That feels weird to say. The Minnesota Twins. I correctly picked. We went to Minnesota this year, Dad. Bad stadium. We had a bad experience.
Good trip, though.
If you're a Minnesota fan, stop renting out your ballpark to concerts. It tears up your outfield and actually really hurts the fan experience. So it's still a cold place. We went in June and it was still cold.
It was. And it was. The game lasted for like 4 hours. Didn't Minnesota,
rain delays.
scored like 20-some runs?
It was a lot. It was
like 26
so the
to
Rockies.
9?
Yeah. It was a bad game, bad defense, errors.
Remember
Nobody cared about the game. Everyone was there to drink.
Bases loaded and they had a 3-base error.
Yeah. Anyways. So we're not going to talk more about your stadium. We were there, obviously, to see this team live. And this team, we predicted at the beginning of the season. I always thought the Twins would make the playoffs. And this year, I was like, the Twins are not making the playoffs. And I was right on that. They blew it in the final weeks. No surprise.
Yeah.
Dad, my outlook on this team is bleak. My outlook is they're going to cut payroll. If it's not cutting payroll, it's not signing anyone to fill some holes. Dad, they've lost Carlos Santana, kind of like a gun for hire, first baseman for hire.
Yeah.
Max Kepler.
Yeah.
Caleb Thielbar. Anthony DeSclafani, who was kind of mostly injured. Giovanni Gallegos. Kyle Farmer, who's already been signed by the Rockies, which is funny that the team we saw were the Twins versus the Rockies. He's on the Rockies. Kirilloff retired before he hit 30. And Manuel Margot. Kirilloff obviously plagued with injuries his whole career. So there's some holes there.
And I'm not sure how they're going to fill them. The TV contract in Minnesota has yet to be resolved as of this broadcast, so they don't have a lot of money coming in. The Minnesota fans are loyal. They do come to the stadium and
drink.
It's a downtown stadium and those type of things, but financially I think they're in a little bit of dire straits, and I'm thinking they're not going to improve that much because they don't have the payroll to do so they're losing a good bit of offense, in my opinion. So that's what concerns me the most, because for a while they were scoring runs until the last month when the train went off the tracks and they really went down in a hurry. So offensively, that's where they need help.
I think they need a new team doctor. Perennially, the Twins, for some reason, constantly get super talented ball players with high ceilings, but are like glass for bones. Byron Buxton played his second season of more than 100 games this year. Carlos Correa had injury moments. Royce Lewis had injury moments. Chris Paddock had some injury moments. Obviously, Alex Kirilloff had to retire because of all of his injuries. I think Edward Julian either got injured or got sent down mid-year. So there was a lot of just instability on the roster. So either healthiness or stability, whatever word you want to put it. I would love Christian Vasquez to get traded. I think that's just a sunk cost of money. He would have to eat mostly all of his contract and get a single-A flyer. I actually think it's worth it to make some money back on him not being that great. And there's a lot of teams that need a backup catcher for cheap. So actually, in theory, it should be easy to trade him if you're willing to eat most of his contract. I don't like Jose Miranda as your starting first baseman entering the 2025. I don't know who will be there. I don't know if Larnack or Wallner could come in from the outfield to play first base, or you do need like a, God, if I dare say, like a Joey Gallo type of person, even someone cheaper than Carlos Santana to kind of man first base. You might have to do that. They do need some veteran, healthy pitching staffs. I mean, I remember the years they had Kyle Gibson. I think that is a type of person they would need. Just, I don't know if they would be able to afford people like that. I just note that this team does not have anyone over 30 in the rotation and only one person over 30 in the entire bullpen. So they desperately need veteran leadership and experience. Otherwise, it's just going to be a bunch of hotheads throwing as hard as they can and continuing to injure themselves time after time. They need a healthy, stable, experienced bullpen or rotation arm. Doesn't need to be an all-star. Just someone like Jose Quintana, Kyle Gibson, that just can stay healthy, knows how to have and maintain his health to teach the young kids. And to me, that's invaluable. I hope they get it. I just don't think they will.
Great points, by the way. Really.
Thank you. I did some deep dives on this team because they piss me off year after year.
Yeah, because you were a big fan of the Twins. You used to predict them all the time.
Yeah.
Just to add to what you're saying, I think this is a team that will wait till February-ish.
Sure. Super smart there.
To make some moves and pick up some bargains, quote unquote.
We love dumpster diving.
And I think that's kind of is what the Twins are going to do is wait for the prices to go down and then get the second tier free agents to sign, because right now it's a competitive division, and they were in second place for a while.
They were in first place for a while.
Yeah, and then just
or tied for first with Cleveland, but it was tight.
Yeah, and then slowly, I remember second place for the longest time, and then all of a sudden the Royals and Tigers crept up. But anyway, they don't have a superstar. I mean, Correa is good. Is he great? Big question mark. But they owe him a lot of money. So I'm just thinking that, the Twins need probably 6 to 8 players to add to the roster. It's all going to come down to finances. So I don't think they'll be active until February.
I think it'd be interesting to see 6 or 8 players added to anyone, but maybe the Mets this offseason. I think that's a high number. I think they're okay with basically replaceable players at a lot of these positions. Again, the Mirandas, the Wallners, the Larnacks, the Simeon Woods Richardsons as a starter. I don't think they'll maybe replace a lot of those players. I just hope people click. I think it's an easy 4th place finish for the Twins. You have teams on the rise with the Royals and the Tigers. You have, for some reason, always a dominant Guardians team. And the White Sox, we'll see if they show up to 162 games. I'm predicting the first forfeit in baseball this year, and there's going to be like some sort of picket protest by the White Sox players. First forfeit in like decades. I've never seen a forfeit, so I want to see something I've never seen before.
Can you see the manager standing
My
there
team didn't show up today.
Counting the people in the dugout?
Yeah, or no, counting people in the stands. Anybody want to play in Chicago? We got to pat you down before we play you, but we'll play you. I'm gonna go to the next team on that high note. I'm gonna go to the Cleveland Guardians.
That was great.
Let's go over the losses first. I think obviously Shane Bieber is the biggest loss. We'll get into what their needs, but obviously pitching is always a need with this team because Alex Cobb, Carlos Carrasco, Matthew Boyd, some mid-year replace players. So a lot of starting pitching. That 8 innings left. There's a Scott Barlow. There's the Austin Hedges, but they re-signed him, so that's great. Sam Henkes and David Fry should be out all year with an injury, so in a way they're losses as well. Excuse me, this team doesn't have a lot of money to spend, never really will, never has. I said on the low end, they're just going to spend like $10 million. On the high end, they could be 50. I don't think I think it'll be around 25, 30. It'll be probably somewhere in between. They need a veteran starter. Honestly, I think they need a bat. I don't know how good Kyle Manzardo will be. There's rumors that Josh Naylor, which would get traded, which would really hurt that team's mojo. They obviously have a perennial MVP candidate, Jose Ramirez, a great Gold Glove second baseman, Andres Jimenez. The Lane Thomas trade worked out really well for them. Stephen Kwan will always be a batting title threat. They have some youth and talent, but I just don't know how much health that is with their rotation. So I think some of the big needs will be rotation help and an offensive bat if they want to spend money.
I keep reading they're looking to upgrade shortstop.
Rocchio is good defensively, and that's
Yeah.
about it. It's like an Omar Vizquel situation.
Yeah, so they're looking to upgrade that position to give them a little more, and they could use some power.
Yeah.
So I think those are the two items that they're looking for on the offensive side. But they had a very good year. I think they did better than most people thought at the beginning of the year, and they kind of like pitching in defense and a little bit of speed. They stole a lot of bases. So again, to finish 92 wins, pretty good. And I think that they add, 3 to 5 players in key spots, especially pitching and a power bat. I think they're on their way.
They have obviously the best bullpen, if not the best, one of the best bullpens in baseball, best closer in baseball. I think that's clear. If that stays healthy, then obviously you play 6 innings and then you turn over your bullpen and they win you the game. I think that's majority of how they won those 92 games.
Yeah. Hard throwers.
Obviously, I know everyone plays everybody now, but they still get to beat up on the White Sox and probably get to beat up more on the Twins this year. They'll be at least a softer team. So, yeah, I mean, I anticipate, as long as they don't trade Josh Naylor, a good year in Cleveland. If they trade Josh Naylor, I think that messes with the energy and the dynamic of the team too much.
And plus, it gives them the power.
He has power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
how much they believe in Manzardo, I guess.
Yeah.
And Joe and Kenzie Noel. Dad, let's talk Royals. Let's talk Royal baseball. Let's talk Blue Bloods. The Royals made a great stride in the playoffs, beating the Orioles, competing against the Yankees. But really this team is like 2 players and 3 pitchers. And you can't win a massive, longer playoff series just with Bobby Witt, Sal Perez, Lugo, Wacha, and Reagans. So there needs to be some depth added. They've already started, which is great. That I love that I think this team is willing to be active. They got Jonathan India, who again is offensively better than defense, but they have Bobby Witt in shortstop, so he'll just go get the balls hit to the other side of the infield too. So Jonathan India could be a leadoff hitter, but has pop to his bat. They lost, a good amount of, I guess the best, and I'm not trying to be rude to these players, kind of like depth and bench. They didn't really lose any key pieces. The additions of Tommy Pham, Michael Lorenzen, Yuli Gurriel. Will Smith was with them all year as a nice reliever. Paul DeYoung was a midseason grab, I believe. Adam Frazier, Garrett Hampson, Robbie Grossman. There wasn't anything, like I said, monumental that they lost, unlike these teams or like the Orioles or the Yankees that we're mentioning. No Sal Perez, no Vinny Pasquantino left. So I think they still need some offensive upgrades. I think most of that's to the outfield. I don't see a future with MJ Melendez. Hunter Renfroe had a really, really down year. I like him as a player. He's one of my favorites. But he is technically, statistically, a replaceable level outfielder that could get traded for really anything.
Yeah.
And Kyle Isbell's not offensively great either. So I think they need a severe upgrade to their outfield. And obviously maybe in a bullpen piece or two. They acquired Urseg. I don't know if he's going to be their closer moving forward. It could be.
He did well in the playoffs.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Hunter Harvish coming back from the injury, but I still think that could get beefed up a little bit if they want to compete long term. And I think trading Singer was needed, but they're hoping Kyle Wright kind of clicks back to his 20-plus win Brave year. I still think they might need a back-end starter.
Yeah. I keep reading they want to upgrade at third base.
Okay. That's Garcia currently, but yeah.
Right. But I'm thinking right now the Royals are looking up. I was so happy to say that was one of my sleeper teams last year. And boy, they came from 100 losses and they finished 86 wins. So a big turnaround in Kansas City. I think they will, do pieces to improve. But that's a team on the rise, and Bobby Witt has an unbelievable future. So again, I think the playoff experience will help them tremendously. I just think they may end up being first place next year.
It's very possible
Yeah.
if they do the necessary additions. I look at this, division, and I see Kansas City as the team that could spend the most. This is a 10 years ago as a World Series winning team. A non-traditional roster for sure, had a really dominant bullpen. But if you go back to the days where Kansas City had like a mafia and like Kansas City was like a feared city in the Midwest, the White Sox won't be competitive. The Twins won't be, in my opinion. The Guardians don't have the money Kansas City does, and I don't know if the Tigers are willing to push the chips in just yet. For hey, we've got all these young guys clicking. Let's not spend $100 million. We'll see. The Royals spent a lot of money last offseason and are willing to upgrade the roster. I think they push that figure even more. I think I have $30 million. I think I would expect them to spend past the India signing, and paying India some more than Singer, but we'll kind of see where that ends up. They could even exceed that kind of threshold, and get to like the $200 million level. We'll see. I'm excited to see Bobby Witt with some protection around him. I think he could be. That's kind of what's lacking from me ever betting on him to win MVP. Like, oh, pitch around him. You don't have to give him everything to hit but if you make Witt either the second or the third in the lineup, whatever it might be, then it's India, Witt, Perez, Pasquantino. Like he's a little bit more insulated.
Yeah, India's going to help that lineup.
I think so as well.
Yeah,
I think it was a good trade for both sides.
Yes.
Dad, let's go to Detroit. A lot of positive signs in Detroit. Probably the best Tigers team we've seen last year since the Scherzer Verlander years.
Yeah.
It was youth. This is where a team of young kids clicked, and they had Tarek Skubal, the AL Cy Young winner, absolutely dominant, taking them through. This team sold technically mid-season by trading Jack Flaherty away and Andrew Chafin, I think one other person.
Didn't expect for him to make a playoff run when he made those trades.
No, the Twins started faltering, and the Tigers said, "Let's keep winning."
Yeah.
So again,
momentum.
The Tigers definitely won more than expected, so I think that also kind of plays into ownership. How much money should we put in this team? There's a little bit of luck last year, but they have no losses. Keep that in mind. It's one of the few teams that is losing not a single person. They did not tender anyone. They kept every single person, so that energy is really great. What I will say, though, is outright cut or trade Javier Baez for anything. If you look at that team once Javi got hurt, that's when they clicked.
Yeah, they gelled.
So I don't know how much Javi used to bring clubhouses together. We look at Chicago in 2016.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Maybe because he got booed as a Met, and then he booed the fans back. But I just say get rid of him, eat the contract, and go out and get a really veteran power bat. Whether that's, I said could upgrade at third. I think Sweeney does kind of make sense at shortstop. Colt Keith, I think, is kind of solidified at second. Spencer Torkelson had a down year, but this is 1 year from having double-digit home run career. So I think he can hit 30, 40 home runs if he clicks. Riley Green had a phenomenal year. Vierling Carpenter, they're splitting time at right or DH. I think that could be supplemented in some way. And I think they need a starter behind Skubal because it feels like it goes Skubal and then not like a number 2, but like a number 4. Casey Mize may have some talent. We'll see if things that 1-1 pick
He's got to stay healthy.
Montero, Olsen, Maeda. Maeda has a horrible year. Good bullpen. I just think this team has just a little bit more needs to compete with the Royals. Now, they could very well do that, and it could be a really fun 1-2 race where maybe both teams make the playoffs again. But as it stands right now, I think the Royals are a better team. They have a better rotation, and they have true hitters.
Defensively, they're better.
Yeah, they are better, especially with the addition of India. But this will be fun to watch the Tigers, and then again, if you're a Tigers fan, I am wearing a Tigers shirt. Supplement that team. I mean, don't forget that what 10 years ago your payroll was, I think, the first or second in baseball because you had Cabrera, you had Verlander, Victor Martinez. Like these contracts, like you're capable of spending a lot of money. You could outspend this entire division as well. I think Kansas City will be the biggest spenders in 2025, but if the Tigers can lock up 1 or 2 people long term, whether that's a pitcher, whether that's a player, whether that's both, I think they'll be poised to compete for years to come.
Yeah. I think they could use a DH. I think they use
I like Kerry Carpenter, but you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little more oomph. They need somebody 25, 30 home runs that would add to their offense. I think Baez will just be released in the offseason before, DFA'd.
Who cares?
Yeah, I agree. And they'll eat the contract. But I think, again, he's got to be off the club. And they got a nice, good farm system as well. The future is bright in Detroit. Who could say that 5 years ago,
Hopefully Detroit fans. Definitely not people in Chicago, because it is dark in Chicago. Boy, oh boy, Dad. They have 2 players, but they do have some bright stars. I'm not going to be completely bleak about your team. I will be bleak about your owner. I hope that you sell your team to someone else and they care for your team better, and don't outright say we're trying to cut payroll even more.
Because
what do you have being paid?
Yeah.
I seriously don't know where you're spending money. I mean, Benintendi, obviously an overpay. Then Robert and Crochet, and then who is the 4th on that salary? I truly don't know. I feel bad for the people that didn't get a call from the 20 other teams that have to sign there. I have to assume Austin Slater, for example. I don't know. The big White Sox watch this year will be seeing if Crochet or Robert get traded. I personally don't think they will. I know that sounds probably shock to a lot of people. I don't think they'll get traded. I think they're asking too much. I think it'll be more of a mid-season pickup by a team, and hopefully they have good years. They non-tendered Gavin Sheets. Nicky Lopez is gone. Michael Soroka's gone. Clevenger's gone. Chris Flexen, Tuki Toussaint, Yohan Moncada finally out of Chicago. It kind of rhymed. Michael Chavis, Max Stacy, Dominic Leone, and Chad Kuhl, one of my favorites. They are all leaving Chicago. Not a lot of strong names there. But yeah, Dad, I don't know. Do you think Robert or Crochet get traded this offseason?
Both.
Wow. See, immediate difference.
Yeah.
We're not always in lockstep, people.
Quick question for you. White Sox lose another 100 games this year?
I think they lose more than they did last year.
They lost 121 games last year.
I will take 130. Wow. I think they go like 30
wow.
and 132.
You know that set a record.
I know. I think they'll beat it. I think that's their goal.
Holy
I think they're going to. Yeah.
Do they move out of Chicago then?
Maybe.
Because there won't be anybody to watch that team.
No. No.
And, it's a fairly new park. I mean, the bills have to be paid. They're just not going to get anybody there unless they do unbelievable promotions to get people in. Dollar beer nights and stuff.
Whatever.
In Chicago.
Disco night. That's the disco man.
Bill Veck.
Yeah, bring back Bill Veck.
They can't.
I know that. I said they need cheap bodies and they need, to be realistic with their trade candidates. And I'm sure this is an East Coast bias, I think the Red Sox, Yankees, and Orioles line up with the White Sox really well in terms of needs on both sides.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to keep tossing out Spencer Jones' name. I think he could headline getting Robert if they obviously don't get Soto. The Red Sox would probably go after Crochet more, and they can give up either Wiley Abreu. I don't want to give up Roman Anthony, but he should be in trade talks. And the Orioles can give up some of those Chase McDermott and those young starting pitchers.
Yeah.
Throwing in, again, if they go for Robert, then throw in Mullins. I know that sounds probably bad to Mullins. Or they throw in Kjerstad. I don't know if they want to go for you.
Don't forget the Orioles have a very good catcher in Double-A that will be
Sure.
a big league catcher. That has some trade possibilities.
I think the White Sox also have Corey Lee. And I want to say they have somebody else as well. That they recently traded for. I could be wrong with that.
He was the number one draft choice. First round draft choice.
They still have, the people that could click this year, Colton Montgomery, their star shortstop that's up and coming. I think he'll get the job out of spring training. If Oscar Colas gets a full year look, Kai Bush, I think there is some talent here. I think openly you're just showcasing your talent to hopefully get traded one day. If both of those players get traded at the winter meetings or whenever, I think it'll be good for baseball. But that also means 130 plus losses. If they don't seriously,
I know.
Your team averaged 201 average last year or something like that?
Be the general manager of the White Sox is in a no-win.
Chris Getz.
Yeah, he's in a no-win position because, the little band-aid approaches to try to get your team better, it's not going to work. So basically, it's going to be time, just like all the teams like the Orioles and the Royals and the Tigers have lost over 100 games. It's time. It's evolution. It's draft choices. So it's all those things, and it's going to be years before the White Sox are respectability again.
Yeah.
So
you can't set the record for losses and get respectable the next season.
No.
So yes, I think despite sending, I don't know if somebody said this stat earlier, but they sent 3 teams to the playoffs, and they still had the most losses per any division in baseball.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
That if you add all the teams' losses, they still had the most losses because of the White Sox tanked them so bad that I don't even think they were a 500 division because of the White Sox.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So that's how bad the White Sox were,
Yeah,
folks.
and I mean, you feel almost sad for the players because they go out there and they know they're not going to win. I mean, they won.
They lost like 20 some straight, right?
Yeah, 41 games over 5 months. Can you imagine being on that team?
6 months.
Yeah.
That's what is that math?
That's,
6 a month?
Yeah.
6, 7 a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. I mean, you win.
And Crochet won most of those games.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Or at least made it competitive for a bullpen person to
Yeah.
win. But yeah, I don't think their jersey sales will do well in that team store across the street, which makes no sense for your team store to be there. But yeah, so that's the AL Central, folks. We have a lot of bleak thoughts on the White Sox and Twins and a lot of hope for the Royals, Tigers, and Guardians. I don't think any of the trade people we talked about, whether that's Naylor, Vasquez, Robert, or Crochet, stay in the Central. So get ready to be introduced to some new players, whether they're departing or incoming.
Well said. Well said. Good research. Well said.
You like the Royal, not the Royals, the Twins' ages. You like that. You're like, oh, that one's over 30. That's interesting.
You know what? I just think,
One player's over 30.
Yeah, financially they got themselves in a hole last year because of the TV contract, and I don't see them spinning out of it anytime soon. In fact, I think a lot of teams have resolved that, but the Twins and another team are the only ones still in that negotiations with no income coming from regional TV, which is huge. So their hands are tied.
Yes, it is. We're going to move on. It's the Diamond Sports, Diamond something?
Correct.
Yeah. We're going to move on to the AL West, folks. Yeah. I want to have a shirt on of a player that I've never worn on this podcast before. So get ready for that. Obviously, that's the most exciting thing.
He's Houdini. He just changes it midstream.
Just like that, you know. Quick change artist. But again, thank you for watching at Pastime Podcast on Instagram and at Pastime Podcast _ on Twitter and Instagram, and the Father and Son Pastime Podcast here on YouTube and on Facebook. Give us a like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you.